Started, and I'm going to introduce today's panelist, Celina Damian, the California Student Loans Ombudsperson from the California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation. We're so happy to have you here, Celina. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Robert. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you to Cal Nonprofits, to Robert for having me. You're one of my strongest partners, and thank you for allowing me to bring this information to people. And I'm watching on the chat and, people from all over the state doing great, awesome work. And I hope that this information benefits you. I'm in San Diego. I'm the student loan ombudsperson here in California, and I'm based out of the state's DFPI. It's the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation, and we are the state's consumer protection agency. We regulate companies of financial products to ensure compliance. So any financial product, any bank, payday lender, mortgage broker, student loan servicers, we're the ones that regulate them. And we also take enforcement and legal action when companies are not in compliance. We enforce student loan related protection. That includes the Student Loan Servicing Act and the Borrower Bill of Rights. And then we accept and evaluate consumer complaints here in California from consumers to help them facilitate communication or help them resolve issues. We also conduct education and outreach to enhance consumer awareness and protect them from fraud and abuse. In my specific position, I work directly with student loan borrowers, and I work with different agencies. I work with other states. I work with federal agencies to understand this information, to stay updated on all the things that are happening with student loans, particularly in the federal student loan landscape, and then to provide this information to borrowers such as yourself and really try to provide some clarity, try to provide some calm in some cases. I know there's a lot going on, a lot happening. We're hearing a lot in the news, and I understand the confusion and the frustration, and it makes it hard for people when they're trying to manage their debt, pay down their loans, understand what path to take. So hopefully this information will benefit you today. Next, please. Just want to review the Bill of Rights with everyone. Assembly Bill 376. This is the law that prohibits student loan servicers from engaging in abusive, unfair, or deceptive practices. And this is for both federal and private servicers. It requires that servicers post and process student loan payments in a timely manner, that they process paperwork, maintain records during servicing, provide you with information, accurate information for IDR plans and any other federal benefits and protection, and that they respond to your qualified request or qualified written request without any negative consequence and within a certain time period. So if you feel like your servicer hasn't done one of these things, or they've been providing with conflicting information, even if it's long wait times, which we're seeing, you can file a complaint with us. We want to know that these things are happening, and it's the only way that we can take action and that we can use our enforcement authority against them. Um, and then under the Bill of Rights, you also have a borrower has a right to take legal action if they fail to comply with these laws, and if you've been financially harmed, if you believe you've been financially harmed by your student loan servicer. This is known as a private right of action. And not every state has such protection. So California, we are lucky that we have this protection, and and under this bill, my position was created. So the states that do have Bill of Rights also have an ombudsperson or advocate in the state. It's about 15 other states right now that have such laws, state laws. Next, please. So today I will be going over just the basic PSLF requirements for those that are new to PSLF. I will be discussing updates on the Save Repayment Plus borrowers, updates for Parent Plus borrowers, qualifying employer rule updates, and then other important federal updates, and then just closing and some additional resources. Next, please. Briefly, who is who in the student aid landscape? Federal student aid or Department of Education, under the Department of Education, is your lender for all federal student loans. So they are the ones that are originating the loans. They contract with student loan servicers. These are the companies that are licensed here in California. They're required to be licensed in the state, and they are your or a borrower's main point of contact. So they are the ones that are sending the monthly bills, calculating the interest, processing loan payments. You are assigned to a servicer. You're not able to switch servicers on your own, except when you consolidate is the only time that you can select a servicer. And you may have more than one servicer throughout the life of your loan. And one thing that I want to mention here and that I want to point out is that federal student, a lot of these updates, a lot of these changes in rules, these regulation, the things that are happening in courts are happening on the federal level. Whenever these changes happen, as we're seeing, sometimes they're overnight. These guidances are sometimes snuck into we don't even know that they're happening. We're contacting each other, like the ombudsman and our other advocates, and we're seeing things happen from one day to another. And these servicers are required to make these changes almost overnight as well. So many times, these servicers, they're holding millions of borrower loans and they're required to either process IDR applications or stop processing or start a forbearance, stop a forbearance, stop or start interest. So my point is there's a lot of these changes that are happening really quick, and these servicers, not only are they servicing the huge portfolio, but they're having to make these changes sometimes overnight. So this is also adding to the backlog and everything that we're seeing. We still want them to process things accordingly and to work in the borrower's best interest, but I just want borrowers to understand that many times these servicers are not at fault when they have to follow the guidance of the federal government. So just a little bit about the how this system works. Next, please. All right, so I'm going to get into PSLF forgiveness. I know a lot of you are probably on track for PSLF and may know the basic requirements, but I still want to review them for those that are maybe new or thinking about applying. For you to access PSLF or for you to have your loans discharged under the program, these three things must happen. You must have the right type of loan, you must be making the an eligible payment and working for the qualifying employer all at the same time, and to have the balance of your loans discharged. This program was created in 2007, and it was a program that was created by Congress and signed into federal law. And then after 120 years, this balance is forgiven. So let's go over the requirements. Next, please. All right. So borrowers must have eligible federal loans. That's going to be your direct, subsidized, unsubsidized, direct grad plus, direct plus loans made to parents, direct consolidation loans. So if you've consolidated all your loans, including your parent plus loans into one, as long as they're direct loans, that they qualify. If you're a borrower that has older FEL, Perkins, or HEAL loans, even FEL consolidation loans, those do not qualify on their own, and you must consolidate in order for you to qualify for the program. If you have one of those older loans and you do consolidate now, your time will reset. So even if you've been working for 15, 20 years for a qualifying employer, if you do consolidate now, you will start at zero. The window for you to receive credit has already passed. That was under the one-time adjustment. Also, if you have several direct loans that are on different counts for PSLF and you want to consolidate, now what will happen is you will get a weighted average. So let's say you have a loan that's under You have a direct subsidized loan and you have 40 qualifying payments, and then you have another one that has 60 qualifying payments. If you consolidate them, you will have one direct consolidation loan with 50 qualifying payments. So that's something to keep in mind for those that are thinking about qualifying. So weighted average for direct loans, if you have Fel Perkins loans, you start at zero. Next, please. Your eligible payments, those are payments that are made on an IDR plan or on a standard plan if the loan has not been consolidated. If you have a direct consolidation loan, payments under the standard plan do not count. Any payments made after October 1st, 2007, when the program was created, these payments do not have to be consecutive. So if you have a gap in your work history, if you went back to school, if you went into the private sector, whatever it may have been, you can pick up right where you left off. As long as you can qualify the employer, or if you have already previously qualified, you just pick up where you left off. The CARES Act forbearance months count towards PSLF, so that's all your time from March of 2020 through September of 2023, I believe. Now time is flying by. So about 3.5 years, I believe, almost 4 years that you can receive credit without making payments. So all that period, as long as you can qualify your employer, will count towards your forgiveness. Payment count adjustment may credit you. Some of you may have already seen or you received additional payments or your count went up. That was because when they reviewed the accounts through the adjustment, it picked up all matching qualifying months where you may have been on a forbearance or deferment. Payments made while a loan is in default or to rehabilitate a default direct loan do not qualify towards the requirement. Next, please. And qualifying employment, federal, state, local, municipal, or tribal, 501(c)(3) nonprofit, serving full-time in the military, Peace Corps, or AmeriCorps. Those are the basic requirements. You can check to see if your employer qualifies under the employer search tool. Just yesterday, I was helping someone. Last night, I was helping someone in my family, and I thought their employer didn't qualify, and we're like, "Are we sure?" And so we checked, and they did qualify. So we were happy to know that they could start apply. They're new to PSLF, and I said, "Okay, well, we'll apply." So that was awesome to always see that that an employer is qualifying. Even if you look up your employer and you don't see them on there, that just means that they maybe no one from your agency has applied yet. So that doesn't mean that you're automatically disqualified. If it's a smaller agency, just they don't have you in the system. Next, please. Some employment takeaways. It has to be paid employment, must work at least 30 hours. You can be employed part-time for multiple eligible employers. Parent Plus loans, the eligibility is based on the parent borrower's employment. So if you have a Parent Plus, if you took out a Parent Plus loan for your child, your dependent student, uh, you can qualify for PSLF if you are the one that's employed. So if they're a public service employee and you have the loan, so it's based on, you wouldn't qualify. So it's based on the name of the employee and their position. The specific job doesn't matter as long as the borrower is employed by the employer. So it doesn't matter if you're in legal, research, maintenance, whatever, as long as that's what's on your W-2, and the borrower must still be working for the employer at the time you submit your form for forgiveness. Or if you're already if you're at the at the tail end of your requirement, just wait until your PSLF is approved to retire or to switch jobs. That's my recommendation. Next, please. And you have to be a paid employee. If you won't qualify if you're an independent contractor. That only is qualifying for certain occupations or in states where laws don't allow the companies to hire directly. So, like in hospitals, that tends to happen. Getting started, you can use the PSLF help tool. You'll need the employer's federal employee ID number And you will need the email address of the designated individual that can certify employment. Check before you send out these forms. Make sure that the person or whoever it is, your analyst, HR person, that they are the correct person, that you have the right email. And just you may want to give them a heads up that this is coming so that it doesn't get thrown into spam. If your employer doesn't understand the program, or maybe you're the first one to need certification, you can send them the link. There's actually studentaid.gov has like employer information as well that you can send them. If you look under PSLF, there's employer tips, employer information that can help the employer, although it is their responsibility, them as the employer, but sometimes smaller agencies don't know about the program. And then next, please. Those of you that are already on the PSLF track are familiar with the tracker the studentaid.gov, where you can keep track of your loans and see how far along you are and what months are qualifying, what months are need certification. So you'll have eligible months and then qualifying months. So the qualifying ones are the ones that you want, and those are the ones that meet the payment requirement and the eligibility and the employment requirement. So that means that they either need certification for certain months. I know sometimes borrowers reach out to me and say that a few months are missing, or they submitted a certification and for some reason they're not showing those qualifying. Sometimes I'll just have them resubmit the form, and then just make sure the servicers are the ones that submit the payment information to studentaid.gov for those months to be qualifying. So in some instances, the servicers have reported the loans are in forbearance, or maybe the borrower wasn't aware that they were on a certain type of forbearance that wasn't qualifying. There's 40 type of forbearances, so save and COVID aren't the only ones. But sometimes you will have to reach out to your servicer to uh, try to find out why certain months aren't qualifying, and I do see that with borrowers quite often. Next, please. All right, so we're going to get into the updates. There are quite a bit of updates, and as I mentioned to Robert earlier, some of these are the first time that I'm presenting them. So I want to apologize beforehand. I'm trying to communicate this information as clearly as possible. And I don't want to bombard everyone, but I do want to make you aware of things that are happening. So save updates. I know this is a big deal for a lot of borrowers who have not been accruing credit, PSLF credit for almost 2 years. So we know in 2024, borrowers were placed on automatic or mandatory save forbearance. And as I said, have not been accruing payment, have not been accruing PSLF months. Payments were not due in August of 2025. Interest began accruing on the loans. Just last month, a court ruling after some back and forth between the circuit courts and the appellate courts, finally the plan has ended. So the saving on a valuable education plan is no more. There are 7 million borrowers that are still stuck and enrolled on the plan. Um, the Department of Education announced that borrowers will start receiving notices from their servicers informing them they have 90 days to switch plans. I understand this is super frustrating for many borrowers that have already been trying to switch plans. They will be notifying borrowers that if they do not move within the 90-day period, they will be placed on the standard repayment plan. If you have a direct consolidation loan, if you have that standard repayment plan will not count towards PSLF. If you haven't consolidated, those months will count, but typically a standard repayment plan will be a higher monthly payment amount. If you previously applied for save, or you were trying to switch out of save or move out of save, and on your IDR application you selected lowest monthly payment, those applications have pretty much been tossed aside. I mean, that's pretty much what we were told by they were put aside by Department of Education. So if you try to move out of save and selected lowest monthly payment on an IDR application, I would recommend, or you must apply for a different plan. So you have to now apply for a different either it's going to be income-based repayment, income contingent repayment, or pay, and I will talk about that right now. So currently, Ed has a backlog of over 500,000 IDR applications. So we understand that for them to say you must move within 90 days, knowing there's this huge backlog, is distressing, right? I understand. So my recommendation is that if you already filed an IDR application and you did it electronically and it's pending, you just make sure you track that information. We are waiting on updated guidance because we want the Department of Education to hold borrowers harmless, which means if they miss that 90-day window because of this huge backlog, that they are not going to be harmed by this. So it's already in court documents that there's this backlog. It's certified court documents. So if there's any issues down the line for borrowers, we want to make sure that it's not on the borrower, essentially. So I wish I had better news on this, that they're going to hire more servicers, more staff to move these applications along, but this is where we are with the SAVE updates. Next, please. And I'll be talking more about switching repayment plans a few slides later. All right, so for those of you that are trying to move out of SAVE and you're wondering, well, which plan do I select? And now that SAVE is not going to be an option, it's important that you know that changes to the repayment plans are also taking place effective July. So right now, if you are trying to move out of SAVE, you will have, as I said, the income-based repayment, income contingent repayment plan, and pay. It will be available for all borrowers. Those plans you can enroll in the plan and they will be available through July 1st of 2028. Starting July 1st of this year, the new repayment assistance plan will be rolled out, and that will be another option for borrowers. The repayment assistance plan is a new plan that was created pretty much to streamline save, ICR, and pay. And under WRAP, this plan will base your monthly payment on your adjusted gross income and your family size, and it will lower the payment by $50 per month per dependent. This is different than the other income-driven repayment plans, which calculated your payment plan based on a percentage of your discretionary income. There will be no more $0 payments on WRAP. The minimum monthly payment is $10. There is an interest subsidy to address negative amortization that's similar to the SAVE plan. There's also a principal subsidy component to the WRAP plan with $50 a month. So if your monthly payment doesn't lower your principal by $50, you will receive the subsidy and it will be lowered automatically. Parent Plus borrowers do not qualify for WRAP unless they consolidate before July 1st of 2026. WRAP has a forgiveness component of 30 years. Then WRAP is also PSLF eligible. So this new plan will be available in addition to IBR, ICR, and pay will be available effective July 1st. Now going back, ICR and pay will be phased out. So if you move from SAVE to ICR, know that in 2028 you will have to move again. Pretty much after July 1st, 2028, the only two plans that will remain will be income-based repayment and WRAP. Any new borrowers, those with any loans disbursed after July 1st, 2026. So that's even if you already have your loans and you take out new loans, you're currently in school and you go and you take out more loans, you're going to be considered a new borrower. You will only have access to IBR and WRAP. So or you're just going back to school, you have a child going back to school, know that there will only be two plans left. So ICR and pay will be available for the next 2 years. The safest plan really is IBR. We don't know there's calculators that will show you what WRAP plan, what that amount will look like. And I will give you the links to those. So this is what's going on with the repayment plan. So if you're trying to move out of SAVE, are not sure, this is what's going to be available. keep in mind that you will probably not get the low payment or that payment that you had on Save because Save was really affordable in their calculation. It was very favorable to borrowers. These are very different, especially the wrap plan, so just keep that in mind. Next, please. For Parent Plus borrowers, as I said, and this is, I had Robert push up the webinar date. We had it scheduled, I think, for farther a few weeks down or end of May or something. And I said, no, I want to have this earlier because I want to catch any Parent Plus borrowers that are thinking of PSLF. Maybe you are on the PSLF track for your loans and you have Parent Plus loans. So just really important to remain eligible for IDR plans and have a pathway to PSLF. If you're a Parent Plus borrowers, you have to consolidate before July 1st. The consolidation has to be dispersed by July 1st. So that means that you have to consolidate now because it does take 60 to 90 days for the loan to be dispersed. So it's really important if you're on the fence, you're a Parent Plus borrower about whether or not is PSLF going to be available? Is it worth it? If you want to have access to RAP and IBR after July 1st, 2026, you have to consolidate. And then once you consolidate, of course, you're going to enroll in the income contingent repayment plan, which is the only plan that's available for Parent Plus borrowers. And then once on the ICR plan, you make your payment and then you either stay on ICR or you can move to the cheaper or the more affordable IBR plan. So that's your option. After July 1st, 2026, new or reconsolidated Parent Plus loans will only qualify for the standard repayment plan and will no longer have access to PSLF. New borrowers with both Parent Plus loans and loans for their own education will still have access to RAP and PSLF for non-Parent Plus loans. Let's see. Next, please. Then PSLF buyback update. I also know that there's a lot of borrowers waiting on buyback responses. This is a program that allows for previously ineligible months to be bought for PSLF. This also includes months in save forbearance. So as I said, PSLF borrowers have lost 2 years of credit, and a lot of you or a lot of borrowers submitted buyback applications in order to buy back the months. We have well, not we, Department of Education has a backlog of 88,000 applications. Those are moving really slowly also, and I've known some borrowers that have been waiting over a year for responses. Just this month, there was a change in the way that buyback is calculated also, and I think it's important for borrowers to know. Prior, the Department of Education had said they would calculate your buyback at this. If you were on the save forbearance, they would calculate you at the save amount. So let's say you had a low payment, that's what your contract or agreement was going to be based upon. Just last month, they changed that due to the court filing to the court ruling, and they said if the start or end date for your period of deferment or forbearance that is being bought back is after July 1st, 2024. So after the save forbearance, that amount cannot be based on the save formula anymore. So essentially, if you're trying to buy back time forbearance months during that save forbearance, now they're going to request income and family size to determine your buyback amount. If you're requesting buyback for months prior to the save forbearance, they're just going to look at the IDR plan that you were on before or after. So this is huge because a lot of borrowers were counting on the buyback amount to be based on the lower save amount, but now they've done away with that, and it's just going to complicate the process and it's going to be more expensive for borrowers. So there is a backlog of 88,000 applications at the moment. Next, please. Qualifying employer rules. So PSLF is still in the books. It's still a program that's still available with a lot of changes, a lot of things happening as we can see. So the program itself hasn't been eliminated, but what has changed is a qualifying employer rule. So the department published a final rule on October 30th of last year, and the law goes into effect July 1st of 2026. The new rule allows the Secretary of Education to disqualify an employer that engages in what they consider substantial illegal purpose. Such conduct includes the following: aiding and abetting violations of immigration laws, supporting terrorism, legal discrimination, violating state laws, and providing certain medical services to transgender youth. We don't know which organizations are being looked at, targeted, but what I can tell you is that, next, please, is that court challenges have been already filed, and I made this took me a while to really, I wanted to show borrowers that I know this is really concerning to a lot of people, but these are the organizations, the states, the counties that have filed lawsuits against this law, and they're in court, they're moving along, and so I don't want, yes, it's expected to go into effect July 1st, but a lot of things could happen as we've seen from here to there. I just learned at the beginning of the week that an opportunity has emerged to overturn the regulations via a special process under the CRA, Congressional Review Act. And I urge borrowers to write the representatives. I really do. I think it's important, whether it's even just saying, hey, the save going away is costing me a lot of money. It's just, like, just whatever concerns you may have, the concerns that you voice to me, that you're voicing to Robert. I think it's important that they know. And I think it's important that, to me, it's always reassuring to know that there's people, organizations that are fighting for you and that know that this is not, that this could really negatively impact borrowers, and it's concerning, right? So I've included a link here for an organization that I work with, protectborrowers.org. They're doing a lot of work. They filed a lot of these student loan cases, and it provides links to your representatives. Actionable steps for borrowers, just real quick, can we go back? Yeah, just continue making progress, and and continue certifying. To estimate your monthly payment, use the FSA simulator, and then our partners at EdCap New York. It's a great student loan resource. They have a great website, and they actually have a great loan calculator that we refer borrowers to. Sometimes it's more accurate than the FSA simulator. Use that calculator. It already has payments for the new wrap plan. It will estimate those plans. You don't have to log in or anything. You can just go on there, enter your AGI, your interest rates, and your family size, and it'll give you a good estimate. I understand everyone's situation is different. I get these questions all the time. Weigh out your options. Should I wait until I have to move out of save? Even if it's 2 months of not having to make a payment, if you want to prepare yourself, make payments to other things in your household. I've had some borrowers who have calculated their new payments, and they're higher. And they say, "Oh, this is going to be a hardship for me." And I tell them, "Okay, well, you're at 115, 118. Is having a higher payments for a few months worth just getting back on the PSLF track and getting this debt, being done with this debt, right? Especially if you're close to the end. Should I wait for my buyback request?" As you saw, how many buyback applications are pending, and now how they're going to be calculating the safe forbearance time. So you need to weigh out, right? Is it going to be more costly do I wait? Or do I just now figure out how to get on an IDR plan and get on track? Do I request forbearance or deferment? That's also something that's been asked. Uh, because from the safe forbearance, you may want to move out to, once they move you out, you might want to select another forbearance and just not make payments. That could be an option, but again, you have to consider interest that's accumulating. And then keep in mind, in 2027, forbearance they're getting rid of the unemployment and hardship deferment. They're doing away with that for new borrowers. And then they're also limiting forbearance periods. So you're not going to be able to stay on forbearance for years at a time. So that's option is also going to be limited. And I understand there's not a one size fits all question here, but these are some things to consider. Just is it worth me waiting on buyback or should I just reapply now? Do I wait a few months to get my finances in order, to start looking at what your amounts are going to be? Make sure you download your PSLF records, account, and NSLDS history. You can always look at that and see how far along you are on the PSLF track as well. If you want to really dig deep into your records, that's the download aid text that's available on the studentaid.gov. Make sure you update your contact information on studentaid.gov. And this qualifying employer rule, I think it's important to know it's not going, if it goes into effect, if and when it does, the department has said it will, they estimate it will only affect about 10 employers a year. The rule will not be retroactive, so you will not lose your PSLF credit, and this does not disqualify you as the borrower. It disqualifies the employer. And then the employer has ways to get compliant, maybe making some type of agreement. We don't know yet, but it doesn't affect the borrower, you, and it doesn't wipe out your history. So PSLF is still in place. We are still seeing PSLF progress. We are still seeing PSLF forgiveness. So this is what you need to know about that. As I said, write your representatives, let them know how all these changes are affecting you. I think it's really important. Next. All right, I do want to give some non-PSLF student loan updates because I think it's important, right, that you know what's going on. Just recently, it announced that the student loan portfolio is moving to the U.S. Treasury. And important to note, the Treasury already handles various aspects of the federal student assistance program. So the U.S. Treasury already issues refunds for borrowers, already distributes the funds for student aid programs, for loans, for all the incoming students. Um, the transfer will take place in three steps. So the first step will be with the defaulted federal student loan. So they will assume operational responsibility for collecting on default federal student loans. They'll help defaulted borrowers enroll in rehabilitation, and they will assume operational responsibilities for default resolution group, which is the servicer that borrowers go to when they go into default. So pretty much Treasury is already doing much of this work. When a borrower goes into default, their loan gets referred to the Treasury where they're assigned to collections and all those processes. So pretty much they're taking over that now wholly. They were just doing part of the work. The second step, the Treasury will work to provide operational support over non-defaulted federal student loan debt to the extent practicable and permitted by law. So they'll provide operational support for now, that's what we know, and then they will provide support to FSA's other functions, including administration of FAFSA and Pell Grant. Borrowers with defaulted loans should continue doing what they're doing with the servicer under this. Here's the link, and then again, I think it's important. Hopefully, I mean, if you're on PSLF, you're not in default. We don't want to get to that point, but this is what that announcement was about. Next, please. New borrowing limits. I think this is also important for borrowers. Let's say you're going back to school. Let's say you have children that are starting in school. So starting July 1st of 2026. So there's no changes to undergraduate limits. That will remain the same. The changes, there are changes happening to the Parent Plus program. Currently, Parent Plus borrowers can borrow up to the cost of attendance for their dependent students. Starting July 1st, Parent Plus borrowing will be capped at $20,000 per year per dependent student with an aggregate total of $65,000. So you cannot borrow $20,000 per year. As you can see, that's over the limit. So now 65,000 per student per year. I'm sorry, for the total amount. So they're also eliminating the Graduate Plus program. There is a caveat to both of those things. If you are an existing borrower, you can continue borrowing under the current rules for up to 3 years as long as you remain in the program. So if your student, your dependent child, or you're in graduate school and you don't switch programs, you'll still have access to the unlimited borrowing pretty much. But if you switch programs or you have an incoming student July 1st, then these new rules will apply to you. This elimination of the graduation of the Graduate Plus program will leave borrowers with the option. They can either borrow under the limit for graduate programs, so this includes master programs and some doctoral degrees. So they will be limited. If you're in a graduate program like this, you will be limited to 20,500 annual borrowing, and with the lifetime borrowing of 100,000 for professional programs. So these are careers that require highly specialized degrees and generally require licensure. They will be limited to 5,000 annually with a lifetime borrowing of $200,000. There is an overall lifetime borrowing limit of 250,500, and this is the limit even if you've received discharge for your loans or if you've paid off some of your loans. So this is your total limit. So again, this is important to note if you are in school or have children going into school. I think what the one thing to keep in mind with this is, and one thing that is a concern for many of us that work in this field is that many borrowers will have to turn to private loans. As we know, private loans have different terms, different rates. They don't provide the forgiveness and discharge programs, benefits that federal loans have. So it's really important now when making these decisions moving forward. For private loans, you do have to have established credit. You have to have possibly a co-signer. So again, making those decisions, understanding how this will affect borrowers moving forward. Next, please. And I think that was my last update. As always, student loan scams, just if you receive a call, text, or letter offering assistance, verify the information, research the company, do not give out your login, passwords, any of that information. Check your portals for communication. That's why it's really important to update. You don't know how many borrowers I get that say, I didn't know this, or I didn't, I at some point I was getting emails, but I stopped looking at them or whatever it may be. Not knowing is not an excuse, unfortunately, and we want you to have the right information. So just don't pay for any of this assistance. Contact someone who knows. Next, please. We still have the Student Loan Empowerment Network in California available for a few more months. We had a 2-year grant program where we were providing one-on-one assistance, counselors, and attorneys to California borrowers. There's still space. If you just need a counseling session, if you want somebody to go over the loans with you, the program is wrapping up in June, July, in the summer, unfortunately. So really take advantage of it. There's some great organizations, your legal aids, check with those if they have attorneys on board that are doing the student loan work. Next, please. And then I think these are just some emails or some resources. My email, the FSA emails, you can still file complaints with the CFPB, as I mentioned in the Congressional Casework tool. The link is in in the PowerPoint. I saw a lot of questions coming in. Robert, let's see.
Yes. Can I help you navigate some of these questions? We
Yeah, do
do
you
have a
see any
lot.
repetitive? Yeah.
And we've covered a lot. One thing that I'll remind everyone of as we go through these questions is that everyone's situation is unique, and because of the individualized nature of the circumstances, we'll try and answer these questions in a broad way. I will be following up with an email that will have some other resources and contacts for people that you can reach out to have your individual case discussed with someone like Celina, who's very well versed in what's going on. And then just another point to underscore is that lots of things are in flux right now. Um, I think I particularly want to, before we get into the questions, and maybe just address one of the big overhanging topics that we talked about are the potential changes that might allow the Treasury Department to disqualify organizations who are involved in quote unquote illegal activities. Can we just underscore the point right now that 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 is something that is coming out of the current administration. No actions have been taken currently against any nonprofits, and we do have lawsuits that are in the courts right now to challenge this process, including the one on behalf of the National Council of Nonprofits, a number of city governments and municipalities. But maybe you could just underscore that message one more time
Yeah.
for folks that are involved in um, immigrant serving organizations, LGBTQ rights, working with trans youth, all of those marginalized communities that we support.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the concern and I understand the way the climate, right? It feels like, yeah, I mean, it's concerning. And so I just, as I said, there's a lot of people on the back end, attorneys, advocates that are fighting against this, and they have been from day one. And as we've seen, the process does work, the judicial system does work and does, you know, it is preventing a lot of things. And there's, you have some just strong supporters, strong, including us, right, in California, that don't want borrowers to lose access, that, yes, and I just want you to continue. I don't want anyone to just drop what they're doing, change employment, leave their agency. I want you to just continue certifying, continue working. As I said, 10, they're saying this will affect 10 employers a year. Even that's too much, if it was to happen. And so I just want to say there's people fighting for you. Don't lose hope. And we will be there along the way to notify you, to let you know there is a to what steps to take in case that happens. That's really all I can say. I can't predict the future and a lot of uncertainty, but yeah, there's people fighting for you and that understand the gravity of this. Congress members, I mean, like I said, this new CR, I just found out about this CRA process. And I was like, okay, people are in senators, Congress members' ear, basically, really stressing how this is not fair and how this needs to be overturned. So there's hope. There's always hope. That's all I can tell
That's
you.
right. That's
Yeah.
right. Let's just run through a couple of these questions
Yeah.
while we have a little bit of time. I'm going to start with a question from Liz, who's asking about hanging loans. And this is a good question because it's not a topic that I frequently come across. And Liz asks, do you have a process that you can provide for those that have not heard back about hanging loans, loan amounts that were messed up, even after you met the 120 payment requirement? Any
So
thoughts on that?
yeah, so for me, hanging loans means that you received discharge and some loans were left out of that. That's what I consider a student loan, a hanging loan. In those cases, I haven't seen very much success. Pretty much sometimes borrowers consolidated loans together and they reached the 120 on one of the loans. That one was discharged and then the other one was left hanging. I think it said in the question about incorrect payment amounts. So I think that they may be referring to something different or counts. But for hanging loans, those are really hard to fix because unless the servicer, it was the servicer's mistake where they left out one of the loans.
Okay. Makes
Yeah.
sense. We had a question about how do I get my agency to apply as an eligible employer?
Yeah, you just apply yourself. You don't, there's not a process. You just, when you go on the PSLF help tool, you enter their federal employer ID number, you write it on the application and you submit it to them, and then they just sign it. And
That's
so
the
if it's,
EIN number, right?
yeah, yeah, the EI employer identification number. Just it's done automatically when a borrower applies. So they don't have the agency doesn't have to do anything per se. They just sign your form.
Okay, I'm going to move on to a Parent Plus question here since
Okay.
there are some new concrete effects taking place. Uh,
Yeah.
if someone took out a Parent Plus loan and retires before paying 120 payments, do they still qualify for forgiveness once they reach 120 payments?
So you have to be working at the time of forgiveness. So even I've had this where borrowers already reached the 120, they were making, so you have to be ensure that you were making payments at the same time. And sometimes I've had borrowers that have had to go work just for a few months just to be able to just even certify that 1 month. So it would put them at 121, but they needed to go back in. So back into the workforce. So you must be working at the time of forgiveness.
Great. And there's a couple of questions that are about this topic. I'm going to read one. I am participating in an educational program while also working full-time at a qualifying employer. Can I apply for my prior loans from undergrad to be put on an RDI plan separately from my current grad school loans and start having those contribute to PSLF?
Yeah, as long as your status is in repayment, yes. So if you're in a graduate program, you may be in-school deferment right now, and so you would have to request to be taken out of that. So you have to be in your status has to be in repayment. So if you are,
So
even if you're just
you could be in repayment for the they could be in repayment for the undergrad loans.
yeah, but your status has, so some borrowers just like to make payments while they're in school, but they're not required to. So just as long as you make sure that your status is showing in repayment. And you can contact your servicer and find out and they'll let you know. So borrowers sometimes just like to make voluntary payments.
Right. Here's
But
another
yes,
one about
you can get on PSLF for those.
yes. And this is a question, this is it's probably tricky, but and I've actually had this issue as well is can you provide guidance on how to get financial aid to update my tracker? I was a part of a group impacted by a system glitch, which resulted in about 8 months of missing credit. So they submitted a reconsideration request in August of 25, but have not received a response. And I followed up. I've also submitted an employer certification. I've contacted my server, but I'm being directed back and forth without resolution. So for someone that is finding themselves kind of in this back and forth, being bounced between maybe the servicer, and the department, what should they do? What are
What
some
I would
actionable
do is
steps?
I would file a complaint through us and request that they update the system. I mean, they're going to say it's on FSA, but I would file a complaint through us through the DFPI complaint portal to start with that and say I'm missing months or this happened. I'm missing these 8 months. I need my payment history updated. So it's not like I feel like sometimes if they just reset the count, reset the systems individually, that helps. And then if I would start there, that's what I would advise because like I said, the servicers are the ones that update the FSA
Yeah,
system. If that glitch was within the internal system of studentaid.gov, sometimes yeah, it's hard for borrowers. But I would go through the servicer and request formally through the complaint process that they fix it, not through the phone.
great. That's helpful. There's two more Parent Plus questions I want to ask because they're a little tricky as well. Is there a deadline to apply for PSLF? My daughter and I just received 501(c)(3) status for our org, and we are not yet funded, so not earning yet. I have a Parent Plus loans and will apply as soon as we're funded.
If they're, you have to consolidate before. So I would you can consolidate. The consolidation does not, don't wait on the 501(c)(3) status. I would consolidate the loans, the Parent Plus loans into direct consolidation loans. Get on the ICR plan, just start making payments, and then once you obtain that 501(c)(3) status, then you apply for PSLF. So what you want is you want to still have access to PSLF through the consolidation, and that needs to be done pretty much ASAP.
Soon. Yeah,
Yeah.
as soon as possible,
Yeah.
because it will take time.
Yeah.
And speaking of time, we are just at the hour mark here. So I want to thank you, Celina, for joining us and running through some of these complex changes. And just reiterate again that this is like a moving target, right? Things are always changing. The challenges to the PSLF program will always be challenged by organizations like ours and the National Council for Nonprofits, as well as organizations like Celina's. There are people that are standing up and fighting for your rights, and we will continue to do so. We would also ask that if you're interested in organizing or working on the behalf of PSLF, please do reach out to either Celina or I, and we can put you in touch with organizations, groups, and coalitions to join. I also wanted to note that there are some questions in the chat that we were unable to answer. I'll collate these questions into a Word document and provide the answers in my follow-up email. I'll also be including the Q&A since there were some questions that we
Yeah.
answered via text. And then also, please do reach out to us. We're always happy to hear from you here at Cal Nonprofits. Celina has also included her contact information. And we will be here to continue supporting you, providing you with updated information. So please feel free to reach out. And thank you for joining us today.
Yeah. Thank you,
Thank you,
Robert.
Celina, for sharing
Again.
your expertise. And thank you to all the registrants for sharing your thoughts and questions in the chat. It's always important for us to hear what's going on in the field and on the ground.
Yeah.
So once
Thank you. And thank you
again,
for all the work that everyone does. It's
yes,
awesome to see.
thank you so much. We will be in touch. Have a wonderful afternoon and take care of one another.
Thank you.
Bye now.